Of the 6 new episodes released in the most recent Steven Universe batch, episodes that yet again went straight to the Cartoon Network app, Dewey Wins was my least favorite, but Gemcation manages to put up a damn good fight for that spot.
You and the Gems all like Connie, and I was worried that if you heard what happened, that you'd be mad at me too.
Oh, Steven.
Let me cut in here, Greg. Oh, Steven, that is so stupid. People experiencing emotional turmoil may not be thinking straight, but even taking that into consideration, this is all still quite nonsensical and emotionally daft. I want to go back to those words I just used, emotional turmoil. Steven just recently was abducted and had his life on the line. He had his friend die in front of him. He managed to revive Lars into a pink zombie, but Lars is still stuck in space with no foreseeable way to return to Earth, and if he's ever found by Homeworld affiliated gems, they will surely kill him again. Let's just lump the emotional turmoil one might experience from these occurrences into a simple term.
It's just space lag.
Now, if Steven was actually suffering from space lag, perhaps even having a difficult time talking about space lag to his loved ones, that would be perfectly understandable and quite tragic. But nope, space lag is used as a mere scapegoat, as a decoy to distract from the real source of emotional turmoil that is clearly far more important than anything else, and that is Connie needing time alone during which she won't talk to Steven. Connie's adoration towards Steven must be constant and non-stop, or else the boy becomes a blubbering mess with only a single thing on his mind. Angering imperialistic space fascists and turning your friend into a zombie who's stuck in a foreign and dangerous world, that's not a big problem.
I'm not upset about what happened on Homeworld, although, yeah, a lot of that was really messed up, but my relationship with Connie is even more messed up.
Sarcasm aside, you have got to be kidding me. This might be fine if the show acknowledged Steven's immaturity and took the time to adequately explore this flawed character trait, but the writing, direction, and even the music score is clearly framing Steven as somebody we're supposed to empathize with and feel bad for. It's bollocks. And on the topic of Connie, I forgot to mention this in my last review, but it sure was thoughtful of her to take Lion with her, thus making Steven unable to visit Lars or let Lars' parents see their boy and make sure he's safe. Yeah, I couldn't stay away from the sarcasm. Connie, of course, has the right to be mad and spend time apart from Steven if that's what she feels she needs. But Connie, maybe think of the kid who died and came back as a zombie light years away from everything and everyone he's ever known? Maybe, just maybe, he should take priority over a relatively minor squabble, no? That's probably the criticism at the heart of the whole Steven-Connie fallout. Conceptually, it's an alright plotline to have, and it potentially could even be interesting if done right. Lulls in communication do occur in real life, and I'm sure some people found this scenario relatable. But you can't shove this plot point in the way of something that is so much more important in every single possible way. The entire tragedy around Lars is getting completely shafted. This is all basically a major problem with long-term pacing and story structure, because even when Lars gets addressed later, it will be too little too late. Don't abandon a plotline with lots of emotional and plot significance to focus on an event that's far less important in terms of the big picture. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. If the overarching plotline regarding Steven and Connie from these 6 episodes was scrapped, would we really be losing that much? I'd argue very strongly that no, we would not be. And is Lars being a space zombie important? I'd argue very strongly that yes, it is extremely important. As if all this wasn't bad enough, things are made worse because we get teased with interesting gem lore that gets shoved completely aside to focus on the Steven-Connie debacle. I almost want to say that Crewniverse was deliberately trolling us, dangling a carrot in front of us, and then hurling it into the sun once our attention was piqued. Even if Garnet's story was going to be just a retread of what we already knew, I'd still rather hear her retelling than watch Steven checking his phone every 10 seconds. This was extremely frustrating for us as an audience, especially considering how rarely the show sprinkles around legitimate gem lore. It was painful to see Steven dismiss Garnet's story the way he did, and it felt like a big figurative slap in the face. On the Garnet note, I think that every single potential future vision route would have led to Steven eventually admitting he was troubled over Connie, so Garnet really should not have been in the dark about Steven's gloom in the first place. But yeah, as if dismissing Garnet's talk wasn't enough, Pearl. Oh, Pearl.
There are things that are impossible for me to explain, but I want to. Stephen,
Connie hates me!
What?
Pearl was on the verge of tears trying to discuss Homeworld and the past. She's finally about to break her dam of silence, her literal dam of silence being her hand on her mouth whenever she's having a hard time expressing herself. Like, let's take a step back here. All lore details aside, this should have been an extremely important moment of emotional vulnerability for Pearl, but we can't even have that, can we? It's always gotta be about you, Stephen. That's a major criticism about the entire show, really. Steven Universe is brought down by the incessant need for Steven to always be the focal point and always be the emotional core of any events that are happening. That problem manifests in the most frustrating manner, both in this episode and the previous episode. It's just so aggravating. And just to throw in a couple more nitpicky complaints, when phones fail to send texts due to a weak signal or no signal, they generally say failed to send or not delivered, do they not? And Greg, why do you nearly drive off a cliff when searching for a signal?
Heading for a cliff, buddy!
You know, you could just drive slowly toward the edge of the cliff and stop safely. You don't have to endanger your life to feed Steven's drama. Seriously though, this was just dumb writing to try and increase non-existent stakes. That's a fairly apt description of the whole episode, now that I think about it. The few nice moments that were had are just entirely overshadowed by the slew of aggravating issues. I'm kind of having a hard time believing this episode was deemed decent enough for production by everybody working on it. At least what's left of this batch of episodes gets better.